A waitress corrects a billionaire's simple mistake and suddenly finds herself dragged into his high-stakes corporate world. But the higher she climbs, the more enemies she makes, and one of them wants her gone. What she discovers next will shake the entire company and her life. The clang of silverware and hum of conversation blended into a steady soundtrack inside Piper's Diner, a small chrome-fronted restaurant tucked between a laundromat and a pawn shop on the east side of Dallas, Texas. For Olivia Hart, the sound was as familiar as her own heartbeat. It was the soundtrack of her life, endless shifts, tired feet, and customers who tipped well or didn't at all. But today felt different. Maybe it was because the lunch rush had been unusually chaotic. Maybe it was because her twin brother's rent was overdue again. Or maybe, she thought grimly, it was because her manager had just announced he'd be cutting everyone's hours. Whatever the reason, Olivia felt the weariness heavy in her bones as she grabbed her notepad and headed toward booth 7, the corner seat that regulars jokingly referred to as the interrogation booth because of the harsh overhead light. Except the person sitting there wasn't a regular. He didn't look like anyone who had ever walked into Piper's before. The man hunched over a steaming mug of black coffee looked out of place, strikingly out of place. He wore a gray hoodie and dark jeans, but the casual outfit did nothing to hide the quiet confidence in the way he carried himself. His hair was dark, slightly mussed as though he'd run his fingers through it repeatedly, and he had the kind of clean, sharp jawline Olivia had only ever seen in films. He was scribbling something on a napkin, numbers by the look of it. Complicated numbers. Calculations. Equations. And he didn't seem satisfied with any of them. Olivia approached the table, forcing herself not to stare. "Hi there. You've been working hard over here. Ready for your check?" The man looked up with piercing blue eyes that hit her with such a jolt that she forgot what she was about to say next. "Yeah," he said, pushing the napkin aside. "Just the check, please." She smiled politely and handed it to him. He scanned the total, $14.86, and then pulled out a sleek black credit card. But before he handed it to her, he paused, glanced down at the numbers he'd written, and frowned. "That can't be right," he muttered to himself, tapping the napkin. Olivia waited patiently, but the more she watched him, the more she realized something startling. He had miscalculated. Badly. He'd added 2 decimals where they didn't belong, completely thrown off the equation. And she caught herself. "Don't say anything, Olivia." Customers hated being corrected. She'd learned that the hard way. But something about this man, this intense, brilliant-looking stranger, made her take a risk she normally wouldn't. Excuse me?" she ventured softly. "Sorry, but that equation you're doing? I think you might have carried the decimal twice." He blinked at her, then looked down, then blinked again. No, he murmured, tracing the equation with his finger. "I'm trying to isolate the variable here, so You inverted part of the fraction," she added gently. It made the final number jump. Silence. A long silence. Her stomach dropped. "Great. He's annoyed. You're about to get fired for correcting a stranger's math." But then he did something she did not expect. He smiled. A slow, absolutely breathtaking smile. And then he laughed, quietly but genuinely. "You're absolutely right." Olivia blinked. You saw that mistake at a glance?" "I guess," she muttered. "I like numbers. Always have." He looked at her with a sudden, sharp interest. Not flirtatious, not amused, evaluating. "What's your name?" he asked. Olivia hesitated. "Olivia. Olivia Hart." He nodded thoughtfully, almost to himself. "Olivia. That's a good name." She flushed. Thank you." He finally handed her the card, still wearing that unreadable expression. "I'll be right back," she said quickly, retreating before she could embarrass herself further. When she returned a minute later with his receipt, he was already standing, hoodie pulled back up, napkin with numbers crumpled in his hand. "Thanks for the correction. Most people wouldn't have noticed." Olivia shrugged lightly. "I've always been good with numbers. Just never had the chance to actually use that for anything." He looked at her again. Harder this time. Then he reached into his pocket and handed her a small, elegant business card. A very expensive-looking business card. "My name is Alexander Ward," he said. The name meant nothing to her. But when she flipped the card over, her breath caught. Alexander Ward, founder and CEO, Ward Global Technologies. Her mouth fell open. You're him? The billionaire tech founder who? The same, he said casually. I'm in town for a contract acquisition meeting. Lots of numbers. He gave her a pointed smile. Numbers I apparently can't calculate properly today. She tried to laugh, but the sound came out breathless. He leaned slightly closer, lowering his voice. I'm short on time, Olivia. And even shorter on trustworthy people who can think fast under pressure. Her pulse quickened. What does that have to do with me? Everything, he said simply. I'd like you to come to my office. Today. In the next 30 minutes, if possible. She froze. What? Why me? Because, he said, slipping his hands into his pockets. You saw a pattern no one else would have. And you weren't afraid to correct someone you thought was just a random customer. That tells me you understand numbers and integrity. Her heart pounded. I have a shift. I can't just leave. As if summoned, her manager, Tom Harris, stepped out from behind the counter. Alexander turned to him smoothly. Excuse me. Are you the manager? Tom puffed up slightly. Yes, I am. I need Olivia for the next few hours. I'd like to compensate the diner for her absence. Tom blinked. Compensate. Alexander pulled out his wallet. Olivia nearly choked. He placed 5 crisp $100 bills on the counter. For her time, he said. And for yours. Tom grabbed the bills faster than Olivia had ever seen him move. Sure, she can go. Olivia, you're clear for the rest of the day. Olivia stared at Tom in disbelief. Are you serious? Tom shrugged. Don't look at me. Your new friend is the one paying. Olivia turned back to Alexander. He nodded toward the door. Shall we? My driver's waiting. Her legs felt like they were moving through concrete as she followed him outside. A sleek black SUV with tinted windows pulled up instantly. Alexander opened the door for her. Don't be nervous, he said softly. I don't bite. She swallowed hard. I just don't understand. What could someone like you possibly want from someone like me? Alexander met her eyes, really met them for the first time. For you to show me, he said, what else you're capable of. The SUV pulled away from the diner, leaving Olivia's old world shrinking in the rearview mirror. Her apron was still tied around her waist. Her hands still smelled faintly of coffee and dish soap. But in the seat beside her sat a billionaire. And in her hand lay a business card that had already changed everything. Piper's Diner was behind her now. Ward Global Technologies, skyscrapers, wealth, impossible opportunities, was ahead. And Olivia Hart, waitress of 6 years, was on her way to a billionaire's office. Because she had corrected his math. Because he had noticed her. Because, for the first time in her life, someone powerful saw something in her worth paying attention to. She exhaled shakily. Her life was no longer ordinary. It had already begun to change. And she had no idea just how far this unexpected journey was about to take her. The drive into downtown Dallas felt unreal. Olivia sat rigid in the back seat of the SUV, hands clasped tightly in her lap as skyscrapers rose around her like steel mountains. The city had always felt huge to her, but sitting next to Alexander Ward, whose calm presence filled the vehicle, made everything outside seem even larger. More intimidating. More surreal. He looked relaxed, elbow resting on the armrest, eyes focused out the window, but she could feel the intensity radiating off him. Even in a hoodie, he carried himself like a man who owned every room he stepped into. She swallowed, stealing another glance his way. Alexander seemed far too calm for someone who'd just invited a random waitress to his corporate headquarters. Meanwhile, her stomach was twisting itself into knots. He noticed her watching him. Nervous? He asked, voice smooth and low. Yes, she admitted. This kind of thing doesn't happen to people like me. He raised an eyebrow. People like you? I mean regular people. Waitresses. Those who don't own tech empires or ride around in cars like this. His mouth curved slightly. Let me guess, you think I picked you by accident. Well, didn't you? He shook his head. I don't do accidents, Olivia. Her breath caught. Something in his tone left no room for argument. The SUV turned onto Ward Tower Plaza, a private gated roundabout lined with manicured hedges and security officers in navy uniforms. In the center of the plaza stood a gleaming glass skyscraper stretching 50 floors into the sky. Ward Global Technologies, World Headquarters. The letters were carved in silver across the front of the building. Olivia stared, mouth dry. She'd seen pictures of this building online, but it felt different seeing it in person, knowing she was about to walk inside. "This is where I work?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. Alexander smiled. "If you want to." The SUV came to a smooth stop. A uniformed doorman rushed forward to open Alexander's door, then Olivia's. She stepped out tentatively, the sunlight reflecting off the glass so brightly that she had to blink several times to adjust. "This way," Alexander said, placing a gentle but firm hand on her back as he guided her toward the lobby. The moment they stepped inside, Olivia felt like she'd entered another world. Marble floors. A 20-foot digital waterfall wall. Employees in designer suits walked briskly across the lobby, tapping at tablets or talking into headsets. A reception desk the size of a small stage sat in the center, staffed by 2 women who straightened immediately upon seeing Alexander. "Good afternoon, Mr. Ward," one of them said warmly. "Your meeting with the Japanese delegates is in 30 minutes. "Please move it back an hour," Alexander replied. Something more important came up. "More important? Me?" Olivia nearly stumbled. The receptionist nodded and made the adjustment without question. As they crossed the lobby, Olivia felt eyes on her, curious, surprised, confused. Some employees even whispered. She tried to shrink in on herself, but Alexander's hand remained at her back, steady and reassuring. Inside the elevator, he pressed the button for the top floor. It lit up red. Restricted access. "Of course." "Breathe, Olivia," he murmured. "I didn't bring you here to interrogate you." "That's comforting," she squeaked. He chuckled. "I want to see what your mind can do." "The math mistake you corrected? That wasn't random." She frowned. "It was just a simple calculation." "It wasn't simple," he cut in gently. "It was a variable restructuring problem from a financial algorithm we're using to detect anomalies in contract bidding. Half my team missed it this morning." She blinked. "You wrote that on a diner napkin?" "I was testing something," he said. "And you passed." She had no idea what to say. Her pulse thundered in her ears. The elevator chimed. The top floor opened into a sleek, open-concept executive level with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city. A long glass table occupied the center, surrounded by modern white chairs. Several offices lined the walls, but one, the largest, had a frosted glass door and a nameplate. Alexander Ward, Chief Executive Officer. He motioned for her to follow. Inside, the office was as impressive as everything else. A massive digital screen covered the wall behind his desk, glowing with charts, numbers, and stock graphs. Bookshelves filled with tech manuals and business journals lined the sides. A seating area with plush armchairs overlooked the skyline. "Have a seat," Alexander said, taking off his hoodie and hanging it on a hook. Underneath, he wore a fitted black t-shirt that revealed lean muscle. Olivia sat cautiously. Alexander moved behind his desk and tapped a few commands on the touchpad. A program appeared on the screen, lines of coded equations, financial graphs, and mathematical models. "This," he said, "is what my team has been working on for the last 2 weeks. A predictive auditing tool. It analyzes incoming vendor contracts for errors, inconsistencies, or possible fraud." She nodded slowly. He highlighted a section of the code. "Earlier today, I ran a test line of data manually. That's what you saw on the napkin. You do billion-dollar work on diner napkins?" "Sometimes inspiration hits at lunch," he said with a smile. Her cheeks warmed. He leaned forward. "Tell me exactly how you spotted the error." She hesitated. I'm not a professional. I don't have a degree in finance or computer science or anything." "I didn't ask about degrees," he said calmly. "I asked what you saw." She took a steadying breath. "Well, you had a variable assigned to a fixed rate that shouldn't have been fixed," she explained slowly. "The decimal point forced the variable to scale incorrectly. It made everything after line 3 jump." Alexander's expression sharpened. "And you saw that instantly?" "I guess my brain just works that way." He straightened in his chair. Something flickered in his eyes, impressed, intrigued, maybe even excited. "Olivia," he said quietly, "are you aware of how rare that is?" She swallowed. "I don't know. I just like solving puzzles." He stood abruptly. "Come with me." Before she could ask why, he was already at the door. He led her down the hall to a glass conference room, where 4 people sat around a table covered in laptops and documents. They looked up in confusion as Alexander walked in. "Team, this is Olivia Hart," he announced. The woman nearest him frowned. "Mr. Ward, the scheduled meeting." "Push back," he said. "New priority." They all exchanged looks. Alexander pointed to a projection on the wall, an enlargement of the same equation Olivia had corrected. "Olivia, would you mind showing my team what you pointed out earlier?" Her heart nearly stopped. "In front of everyone?" "They won't bite," he assured her. "Usually." A few chuckles broke the tension. She approached the screen, praying she wouldn't embarrass herself. Taking the digital pen Alexander offered, she circled the error. "You assigned a fixed value here," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "But since this variable is influenced by market rate fluctuations, the decimal shouldn't have been fixed. It needs to shift dynamically based on the variable dependencies in lines 2 and 3. The room went silent. One of the analysts, a man in glasses, leaned forward. "She's right," he muttered, astonished. "How did we miss that?" "I didn't even consider that dependency," another murmured. Alexander folded his arms, pride glowing subtly on his face. "Exactly. But," the woman closest to the screen said slowly, "this design flaw affects the entire auditing model." "Yes," Alexander said. And Olivia caught it in 10 seconds. "He's exaggerating," Olivia said quickly. "I'm not," Alexander countered gently. The team stared at her, respectfully now, even admiringly. Alexander turned to them. "Fix the model. Adjust the rate dependencies. And incorporate Olivia's correction." They nodded, scrambling to make notes. Then Alexander placed a hand on Olivia's elbow and guided her out of the room. When the door shut, he looked at her with quiet intensity. "Do you understand now," he asked softly, "why I brought you here?" She shook her head. "Not really. You have something my team has lost. Something universities can't teach. Something money can't buy." She blinked. "What's that?" "Instinct," he said simply. "Mathematical intuition. Pure logic. Pattern recognition." Her heart thudded. "But I'm just a waitress." "No," he said firmly. "You're a mind that's been overlooked. But not by me." She felt the world tilt slightly. Alexander walked back toward his office. She followed slowly, her thoughts swirling. "Sit," he said when they returned. She did. He began typing rapidly, then turned his screen to face her. "Olivia Hart, I'd like to offer you a temporary position here at Ward Global," he said. "Analyst apprentice. Full-time. Starting immediately." Her jaw dropped. "And before you say no," he added, "this would include training, mentorship, access to our resources, and a salary of..." He slid a digital contract toward her. She read the number. Then read it again. $7,800 a month. Her breath caught. Tears pricked her eyes. That's more than I make in 4 months at the diner." "It's what your talent is worth," he said simply. "But I didn't study for this. I don't have the right background." "I'll teach you," he said. "Personally." Her eyes snapped to his. Something passed between them, something warm, electric, unfamiliar. He cleared his throat lightly, breaking the moment. "All I need today is your signature on the temporary contract. You can transition to a permanent role later if you choose." Olivia stared at the digital pen in her hand. Her entire life, every struggle, every late night, every bill, every dream she had buried, seemed to rest in that tiny piece of plastic. "Are you sure about this?" she whispered. "I've never been more certain," Alexander replied. Her hand trembled as she signed the contract. When she finished, he took the tablet from her, scanned her signature, and gave her a small, satisfied smile. "Welcome to Ward Global, Olivia." She exhaled shakily. "Thank you," she whispered. "I won't let you down." "I know you won't," he said. For the first time since they'd met, his voice softened in a way that made her chest tighten. "You're going to do extraordinary things here," he murmured. Then he stood, walked around the desk, and extended his hand. She placed hers in it. Warm. Steady. Strong. A pulse shot up her arm, startling her. She pulled back quickly, cheeks flushing. Alexander pretended not to notice, but the very faint lift at the corner of his mouth gave him away. "We'll start your first task tomorrow morning," he said. For now, I'll have my assistant prepare your ID badge and building access. She nodded, still overwhelmed. As he escorted her to the elevator, he leaned in slightly. And Olivia? Yes, she breathed. Don't go back to the diner, he said softly. Your world is bigger now. The elevator doors opened. She stepped inside. Alexander watched her with unreadable eyes. The doors slid shut, and Olivia felt her old life vanish behind them like a shadow. Tomorrow, she would walk into this tower as a new person. A person with purpose. A person someone finally believed in. But she had no idea that this was only the beginning. No idea of the danger lurking within Ward Global. No idea that someone in that building was watching her. Waiting. Plotting. Because her discovery had rattled more than a few equations. It had rattled a saboteur. And they were just getting started. The next morning, Olivia stood in front of Ward Tower wearing the nicest outfit she owned. A pale blue blouse and dark slacks she'd ironed 3 times. Her hands trembled slightly as she smoothed her hair, then checked her reflection in the glass again. This is real. This is really happening. The revolving doors opened as employees streamed inside, giving her barely a glance. Yesterday, she had walked in as a stranger beside a billionaire. Today, she stepped inside as an employee. Inside the lobby, she approached the reception desk. The 2 women from the day before recognized her instantly. Miss Hart, welcome, one of them said warmly. Mr. Ward notified us you'd be starting today. She handed Olivia a small badge with her photo and name printed beneath. Olivia Hart, analyst apprentice. Olivia stared at it, stunned. Wow, she breathed. The receptionist smiled knowingly. Elevator 3 will take you to the executive floor. Elevator 3 gleamed like something out of a movie, brushed silver, narrower than the others, clearly exclusive. With a deep breath, Olivia stepped inside. As the doors slid shut, she adjusted the strap of her handbag, pressed her new badge against the scanner, and felt the elevator launch upward at an almost dizzying speed. This is insane, she thought. Yesterday I was refilling coffee. Today I'm. The doors opened. She stepped out into the executive floor, where the morning sun flooded through the glass walls, casting golden light across polished floors. Employees moved with purpose, their voices low and focused. Alexander's assistant, a tall, stylish woman with caramel skin and perfectly braided hair, greeted her instantly. Olivia Hart? Yes, Olivia replied, palms sweating. I'm Layla Brooks, Mr. Ward's executive assistant. He's expecting you. Her tone was warm but efficient, like a woman who could schedule a global conference call and a helicopter landing at the same time. Come with me. Olivia followed her down the hallway. As they walked, Layla lowered her voice. Just a little tip. Don't be intimidated by anyone here. If Mr. Ward hired you, he saw something valuable. Olivia exhaled. I hope so. Layla grinned. Trust me. Alexander Ward doesn't make impulsive decisions. Ever. But Olivia didn't miss the way Layla's eyes softened slightly when she said his name, or the subtle hint of protectiveness there. Interesting. Before she could dwell on it, Layla pushed open the frosted glass door to Alexander's office. He was already inside. Alexander stood near the window, a mug of coffee in hand. Sunlight framed him, making him look almost unreal, tall, composed, sharp as a blade. When he turned and saw her, something flickered in his expression. Something unmistakably warm. Good morning, Olivia, he said, stepping toward her. You're right on time. She swallowed, suddenly hyper-aware of her heartbeat. Good morning. Layla cleared her throat, lightly but pointedly. Alexander blinked and straightened, the moment instantly cooling. Thank you, Layla. That will be all. As the door shut behind her, he gestured toward the small seating area beside his desk. Come sit. She did, feeling like she'd stepped into a test she hadn't studied for. I wanted your first day to be structured, he said, sitting across from her. So I've prepared a training outline. He handed her a sleek tablet. She scanned the screen. Training Day 1. Overview of auditing software. Introduction to algorithmic models. Basic pattern recognition analysis. Real-time contract review. Error detection assignment. She looked up. This is a lot. You're capable of it, he said simply. Yesterday proved that. Her cheeks warmed. He continued. You'll spend most of today shadowing me and the analytics team. I want you to observe more than you act. But near the end of the day, I'll give you something small to work on. Okay, she said, sitting straighter. I'll try my best. He leaned back slightly, studying her. Trying won't be your issue, he murmured. Believing in yourself will. Her stomach did a strange flip. And Olivia? Yes. He gave a small, almost playful smile. It's Mr. Ward during work hours. She felt heat rise to her cheeks. Right. Sorry. Don't be, he said softly. The next several hours flew by. Alexander introduced her to the analytics team. Evan, Priya, Jordan, and Nora, and each gave her polite but cautious smiles. She could feel their curiosity prickling beneath their professionalism. Who is she? Why did the CEO bring her? They weren't rude. But more than once, Olivia caught someone glancing her way as if trying to solve a puzzle. Alexander guided her between teams, explaining tools, algorithms, the company's digital infrastructure, and the purpose behind their current project. His teaching style shocked her. He wasn't impatient like bosses she'd seen before. He wasn't dismissive. He spoke to her like she mattered, like her mind was equal to anyone else's in the room. Whenever she hesitated, he broke concepts down gently, always watching her closely to see if she understood. And she did. Almost everything clicked faster than she expected. Patterns, numbers, inconsistencies. They jumped out at her like they were speaking their own language. By lunch, even the seasoned analysts looked impressed. Priya leaned toward her at one point and whispered, "If he's training you himself, that's a big deal. He doesn't train new hires. Ever." Olivia's pulse quickened. Near the end of the afternoon, Alexander approached her desk. "I have something for you," he said, placing a folder in front of her. She opened it. "Is this a real contract?" "Yes. A small one. I want you to review it using what you've learned today. Highlight anything that looks off. No pressure." She nodded, heart pounding. He smiled. "I believe in you." When he walked away, she stared at the contract, took a deep breath, and began. At first it seemed normal, line items, vendor information, cost breakdowns. But then, something snagged her attention. A decimal inconsistency. A duplicated line. A hidden subfee. Patterns jumped. Clusters didn't match. And then, she gasped softly. A number had been flipped. Just one. Barely noticeable. But the change altered the total payout by nearly $400,000. That's not a mistake. Someone had done this deliberately. Her chest tightened. Fraud. Inside the company. She circled every error, heart thudding harder with each one. When she finished, she stood and walked toward Alexander's office. He looked up as she entered. "Finished already?" he asked, brows raised in surprise. "Yes," she said quietly. "And, you need to see this." She placed the folder on his desk. He opened it, scanning her notes. His expression darkened. Deepened. Intensified. "Who gave you this contract?" he asked tightly. Priya said it came from the vendor audit queue. Someone submitted it this morning. He closed the folder slowly. This contract wasn't supposed to be processed today. Something cold trickled down her spine. Alexander stood abruptly, storm-dark eyes fixed on the paper. This wasn't an error. Someone tried to slip this through the system. "And you think it's someone inside the company?" she whispered. He looked at her. Hard. Unblinking. Yes. The air seemed to thicken around them. For the first time since she'd met him, Alexander looked genuinely concerned. Not angry. Not annoyed. Concerned. "How long has this been happening?" she asked softly. He exhaled through his nose. "Longer than I'd like to admit." She swallowed. "Then why did you give this contract to me?" "Because I wanted to test you," he admitted. "To see if your instincts were real. If you could see what others couldn't." She blinked. "And did I?" He stepped closer, too close. "So clearly," he said, voice low. "It's unsettling." Her breath caught. For a moment, neither of them moved. The city stretched out beneath them. The office hummed quietly in the background. And Alexander Ward, the impossible billionaire who had walked into her diner less than 24 hours ago, looked at her like she was the missing piece to a puzzle he'd been trying to solve for years. He spoke first. "I need you to listen carefully, Olivia," he said softly but firmly. "Your discovery changes things. For you, for me, and for whoever is doing this." She nodded slowly. "What does that mean?" It means someone will realize you caught them. A chill swept through her. And they won't be happy about that. Her throat tightened. Are you saying I'm in danger? His jaw clenched. You might be. Which is why from now on, you don't walk anywhere in this building alone. You don't discuss what you found. And you come to me immediately if anything feels off. Do you understand? She nodded, breath shaking. Yes, Mr. Ward. His eyes softened. Good. For a lingering moment, he held her gaze. Something protective, almost possessive, darkened his expression. Then he stepped back, regaining his controlled composure. I'll handle the internal investigation, he said. You just focus on learning. And trust me. I do, she whispered. He exhaled, almost relieved. Good. But just as she turned to leave, the office phone rang. Alexander answered. His expression shifted instantly. Cold. Sharp. Alert. Yes, he said. A pause. His pupils narrowed. I see. I'll come down immediately. He hung up and faced her again. What happened? She asked. A system breach, he said. In the auditing department. Her stomach dropped. Someone tried to erase the contract you just reviewed. Her blood ran cold. But how did they know I? Because they're tracking every flagged error, he said grimly. And they noticed someone new identified something they didn't want noticed. She stared at him, fear creeping into her bones. What do we do? He stepped toward her, voice low and steady. We stay ahead of them, he said. And we stay careful. Then, without warning, he touched her elbow lightly, guiding her toward the door. Stay close, he murmured. From this moment on, I'm not letting you out of my sight. Her heart pounded as they stepped into the hallway together. Someone inside Ward Global was watching. Someone inside the building knew she was a threat. And as she walked beside Alexander Ward, his presence strong, protective, unshakable, Olivia realized something. Her life hadn't just changed. It had entered dangerous territory. And the saboteur lurking in the shadows? They had already marked her. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like, share, and subscribe to Boundless Echoes for more interesting stories. We really appreciate your support. Comment where you are watching from, so we can give you a shout out. See you in our next video.